welcome back to the Rogue Trader podcast. I think there's a small chance that we're going to have to rename it because every time we meet up with Jason Sen, the market expert, we're talking about gold. It's no different today. Gold has had another crazy evening during the Asian session. That's continued into the European session. We're seeing new highs all of the time. It's as volatile as anything, and there's plenty of opportunity, but there's also a lot of pain as well. So maybe we're going to have to rename it the Gold Podcast with Nick and Jason or something. So we will get round to talking about that in a few minutes. There's also a death cross. JP Morgan putting out some research on Tesla that we're going to have a look at with Jason and see what the charts are saying, what people are looking at in relation to the death cross. But I woke up very early this morning, as I know, as I know my co-host Jason does as well. The first thing that I saw was gold close last night at about 3,230. This morning I woke up, it's at 3,275. It touches 3,300 fairly quickly, leaps through there, is at 33.17 and has slowed down a little bit now. I think the word that you sent across to me early this morning was parabolic in terms of the way that gold has and continues to trade. But maybe we could bring those charts up, Jason, and see what you're seeing and just how crazy that market is at the moment.
Okay, here we go. Gold. So there we go. That goes back to April 24. So we're looking at a year's chart. Nice steady uptrend within the trend lines, and then of course we broke up. Well, we broke up, pulled back over the Liberation Day. It's called, isn't it? And then gold. Yeah. Since that small correction, 3-day correction, and then gold just went through the roof. Those 3 days of candles. Let me see now. They went from 29.69 up to 32.45. So near enough $300 in 3 days. We had a 2-day pause.
Yeah. Where do you see this going from here? And any targets that you're looking at, or is it just a pullback?
I think I've got something like 33.50, the 33.5 area as a next target. It all, yeah, I said parabolic, and it kind of does feel like that now. We're really accelerating to the upside. You'd have to be crazy to bet against gold, and a parabolic move can be significant. So I certainly wouldn't bet against it. That's all I can say, really. We've broken above this structure. For me, that's important. We've broken above that upward sloping trend line, and we're accelerating.
So it's not going to surprise you, Jason, when you say that you wouldn't bet against it, that I have. But I'm currently...
That's your style. I know that's your style.
I know. But I think the one thing that I'll take out of the last few weeks when we've been doing this, Jason, is, I'm not overextending as much as I would normally, and I'm more patient, looking for some of the levels that you recommend on your daily trade ideas. So I think it's definitely proven of a benefit to me. But I'm short around that 3,300 level, just above it. I've nipped in and out a few times this morning. It has worked quite well. It's moving quickly. And that kind of suits what I try to do. So I have one very small position on. It is short, so it's just funny when you say that it's going higher. You wouldn't bet against it, and of course you're talking to one of the.
I'm talking longer term.
Yeah, no, but you're talking to one of the few people who probably has bet about it, bet against it today. So the other thing that was quite interesting, and there's a few things that I want to talk about because I had a huge mistake last week, and I know it's something that you talk about a great deal on some of the excellent content that you put out on Day Trade Ideas. We all still make some of the mistakes that we made 30 years ago. We've all got a lot of experience, but still you step over that line and you still think you're right, or you don't have some of the controls in place. And for me, last week it was, it was a massive mistake. The markets were. I have an auto stop on my position, which I disabled for a short period last week. I don't like admitting that live on one of these podcasts, but I did, just because of the big swings that were coming into the market, and it was a little bit too tight. And then secondly, I decided on Wednesday that I wanted to go, I think it was Wednesday, that I wanted to go for a spinning class, left my phone down, didn't put a stop on a gold position, no, not on a gold position, on a Dow position. I stepped into the spinning class, the phone was away from me, no stop on a Dow position, and then Trump comes out and announces that he's going to suspend the tariffs or postpone the tariffs for 90 days. Come out of the spinning class, 3,000 points higher. That was a painful lesson, and one that I would have learned years and years ago, but still repeat. Maybe you give us a couple of minutes about just some of the errors that you see people repeating all of the time over their trading careers, and maybe how they can cope with some of those better than they do.
Okay, yeah, not using a stop loss is pretty much my number one, because of course you wouldn't get into a car without a seatbelt, or without the knowing that the brakes work. If you get into a trade without stop loss, it's a little bit like that. You just don't know what your maximum downside is, and as you've said, things can really run away from you quickly. And I don't know about you, but when I used to trade without a stop loss, look, we've all done it. You get to a stage where you've lost so much money, you're just defeated, and then hoping that things turn around. You've really got no idea whatsoever, and then it's got to a stage where it's almost like, well, it's all or nothing for me. And I got into that state many times. So now my rule is just put your stop loss in. My rule is pretty much plan your trade your plan. So before you even get in, you plan it. Where's my stop loss? Where's my target? And then you know exactly what you can lose and what you can make. And of course, if you're trading, you do need to know what your risk is versus your reward on every trade. Because in the long run, if you're not risking less than you expect to make, you're not really going to make any money, or the odds are definitely against you. And of course, this game's all about probabilities and putting the odds in your favour, because we can't control the market. We can only control our reaction to the market.
Yeah, and I think that's, that was definitely the place I got into Wednesday. Now it was, I cut the trade fairly quickly thereafter, and thankfully picked things up a little bit on Thursday and Friday, and I've done spectacularly well this week. But it was a very disorderly market. It's very, very dependent upon what Trump is saying and what's going on with the tariffs. Before we started this, I see that he has his first round of negotiations with Japan coming up. So, maybe there's some more positive stuff to come through in this market, but still very, very nervous. And I think that's seen through gold probably more so than anything at the moment, with the way that gold is trading, and maybe people shifting towards that safe haven as well. The other thing
seems to be the only safe haven, doesn't it? Really, I mean, the bonds were a safe haven, and then they got clobbered. The dollar is usually a safe haven, but of course is caught up in the crossfire of the tariffs. So I guess gold's the only thing left. Interesting that Bitcoin hasn't really reacted as a safe haven, but that's another story.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin sold off a little bit overnight. The other thing we spoke about briefly just before we came into this was about the death cross that people are talking about now on Tesla, and some analysts' report from JP Morgan that's calling that stock price down very considerably over the next period. You and I both know when you're standing in a pit, and this is an analogy I give to some people sometimes. When you're standing in a pit and there's certain banks or investment banks, brokers coming into the market, and you see they've got a big order, or they're about to bring a big order to the market, you get out of the way. More often than not, Goldman's, JP Morgan, if they've got something that they want to do, they're going to be reasonably correct with it. So I just wondered what your thoughts were on Tesla and anything that you're seeing with that.
And not only that, they've got the size to back it up. That was the real thing, wasn't it, on the floor? Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, betting against big banks with all their research and muscle isn't a very good idea. So let's have a look at Tesla. Well, I think a death cross is when you get a fast-moving average crossing below a slower-moving average, and we've definitely got that here. I think I know what they're talking about. 50-day moving average is my black line. That sank quite quickly after the stock turned around. Let me see now. The stock turned around in December. So the 50-day moving average turned around 2 months later. Last month in March, we crossed below the 100-day moving average, and we've just crossed below the 200-day moving average. So I guess that's where their research is coming from. I haven't seen it myself. So yeah, it does indicate that's a trend change. At the moment, we are consolidating over the last month or so, as you can see, in quite a wide range. Now, for me, we do have really good support in Tesla down at, around the 200 down to 190 area. It's a big fib level for us. That's my main reasoning. There isn't a huge amount of price action that would back that up, but there is a good fib level down there. So that would be the level for me to watch. We start breaking below $190, and we could be going to where did I'm not sure where they said, was it? They said the stock might halve, so we're talking about 125. I think you said. Well, we could definitely get down to 170 to 175. That would be where these trend lines intersect. Get below 160, then yeah, maybe we could be seeing that as low as 100. Well, certainly the low 100s area, 125, something like that. It's possible.
Okay, so there's a couple of good charts that we've looked at there today. Gold, a continuation of the series that we've been talking about. So you see gold possibly moving a bit higher. Tesla, what you're seeing on the charts there, and I know equities. How many equities do you follow? Or I think the thing I love about your approach, Jason, is that if it's a chart, it's a chart. It doesn't matter whether it's an equity or it's an index or it's a commodity or whatever. It really is just that. Very professional approach to the way that you interpret those charts.
Yeah, I have a system that I've used now for 20 years, and it works on any market. I've simplified it. The thing is, when people start with technical analysis, they tend to put everything on there. They think more is better, and then you soon realize that that's just totally confusing. You can't see the wood for the trees. So I've simplified it immensely, and I can apply it to any market. I don't actually follow stocks, and I must say I'm actually long Tesla, so I'm going against JP Morgan, which isn't the cleverest thing to do, but I think it's going up anyway. We'll see who's right. But I do follow the stock indices closely every day. I do put signals out on those.
All right, well, lovely. We'll follow those two markets over the next few weeks. I think your trade calls have been fantastic over the last few weeks that we've been doing this. People can follow you on day trade ideas. I think there's excellent advice about how to avoid some of the mistakes that I made last week. I have no problem admitting to some of those mistakes. I know that you do from time to time as well. And, it's just that real approach to the markets. You've been there so long, you've seen it, you've done it, you've experienced it all. And it's passing that experience on. So, if people can follow you on day trade ideas and anything else that you're doing at the time, I think that's great. Likewise with this podcast, we'll continue to do these. If people can subscribe, if they can like and share the podcast, that would be fantastic as well. And, we'll be back on in the next few weeks to see how Tesla and gold are doing, I'm sure. Thank you very much, Jason.
Cheers, Nick. Good luck.
Take care, mate.